The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's sky like dark storm clouds, blocking out the sun over major cities. Their metal hulls were black as space itself, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. Fleet Commander Vexilla pressed his four-clawed hands against the glass viewing port of his flagship, watching the small blue planet spin slowly below. "Report," he commanded, his voice a low growl that echoed through the bridge. His tactical officer, a thin creature with gray skin and large black eyes, checked his instruments. "The planet has weak defenses, Commander. Humans have basic rockets and simple weapons. Nothing that can reach us up here." Vextella's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. This was going to be easier than he thought. The collective had been doing this for thousands of years, traveled to primitive worlds, take their people as slaves, leave just enough behind to make more slaves for later. It was a perfect system. "Send the message," he ordered. "Down on Earth." Every television screen, radio, and computer suddenly went black. Then a voice spoke in every language at once, somehow understandable to everyone who heard it. The message was simple and terrifying. "People of Earth, you will give us 100 million of your kind to work in our mines and factories. You have 3 days to decide. If you refuse, your cities will burn." In New York, people stood in the streets staring up at the dark ships that hung in the sky like giant metal vultures. Some screamed, some prayed, some ran. But in a secret room deep beneath the United Nations building, President Daeho Kim sat at a long table with other world leaders, and his face was calm. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "we have been preparing for this day for 30 years. Operation Sleeping Dragon begins now." The other leaders nodded. They had known this moment would come ever since the first alien scout ship had been shot down. Over Alaska in 1995, the world's governments had worked together in secret, sharing technology and building defenses that the aliens knew nothing about, in Seoul. Colonel Minho Park sat in an underground command center surrounded by screens and blinking lights. He typed a short message into his computer. "The Dragon wakes." Within seconds, hidden military bases around the world received the same message. Soldiers who had trained for years in secret began moving to their positions. "Dr. Sujin, you worked frantically in a laboratory buried beneath." Tokyo, the machines around her hummed with power, their screens showing designs that looked like they came from science fiction movies. But these were real, built from technology taken from that crashed alien ship decades ago. She had spent her entire career learning how alien computers worked, how their weapons functioned, how their ships flew. "Through space? Systems are ready," she reported into her headset. "The virus is prepared for deployment." Captain Hyen Wu Li stood in a military barracks in London, looking at 200 men and women in simple civilian clothes.
Ow.
They looked like ordinary people, teachers, farmers, shop workers. But each had been trained in secret for years. Each had been given special treatments to make them stronger, faster, smarter. They were volunteers, ready to sacrifice themselves for their world. "Remember," he told them, "you are not soldiers today. You are frightened civilians who have given up hope. Let them take you. Let them think they have one. When you reach their ships, then you become the weapon." The volunteers nodded. They had known this day might come. They had families, children, lives they were leaving behind. But they also knew that sometimes good people had to do terrible things to protect the innocent. Meanwhile, in the alien flagship, Commander Vexilla watched his screens with satisfaction. The humans were already beginning to surrender. He could see crowds gathering at the designated pickup points in major cities. Large transport ships were preparing to descend to the planet's surface. "Foolish creatures," he muttered. "They give up so easily. This will be our most profitable harvest yet." But he did not see the hidden satellites that were slowly moving into position around his fleet. He did not detect the stealth ships that had been waiting in the darkness beyond the moon for decades. He did not know about the computer virus that was already spreading through Earth's primitive internet, waiting for the right moment to strike. The aliens had studied humanity for years through their spy drones. They knew about human wars, human weapons, human technology. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had only looked at what humans showed the world. They had never imagined that beneath the surface, humanity had been preparing for this exact moment. As the first alien transport ships began their descent toward Earth, the real trap was already in motion. The humans had learned long ago that sometimes the best way to hunt a predator was to let it think it had already won. The aliens thought they had found easy prey. They had no idea they were about to become the hunted. The giant alien ships came, down from the sky like metal mountains, their bottom doors opening wide like the mouths of hungry beasts. Commander Vexella stood on his command deck high above Earth, watching through his screens as long lines of humans walked toward the waiting ships. Everything was going exactly as planned. "Look at them," he said to his officers, pointing at the humans below. "They walk like sheep to the slaughter. No fighting, no running. This species has no spine." But something bothered him. In all his years of taking slaves from other worlds, he had never seen conquered people move so calmly. Usually there was screaming, crying, people trying to run away. These humans walked in straight lines, orderly and quiet. It was almost like they were soldiers marching to battle. Captain Jehun Kwan stood at the front of one of these lines, wearing old jeans and a simple shirt like any ordinary person. Behind him, 200 other humans waited their turn. They looked like farmers, teachers, office workers, but if anyone had looked closely at their eyes, they might have seen something different. These were not the eyes of defeated people. "Remember," Jehun whispered to the woman beside him, "we are scared civilians. Act afraid, but not too afraid. We gave up hope, but we still want to live." The woman nodded. Her name was Sora, and she was actually a computer expert who had spent 5 years learning how alien technology worked. In her pocket was a small device that looked like a broken cell phone. Inside that device was a computer program that would change everything. The alien guards pushed the humans forward with their weapons, shouting commands in their harsh language. The humans stumbled and looked frightened, just as expected. Jihu noticed how his people moved. Even while acting scared, they stayed in formation. They watched everything. They were gathering information. "Shh. Move faster, meat," growled one of the alien guards, pushing an elderly man.
Ow.
The man fell to his knees, but another human helped him up. The guard laughed. "So weak. You will not last long in the mines." The humans were led through a tunnel of bright light that hurt their eyes. Machines scanned their bodies, checking for weapons and diseases. Aliens found nothing dangerous, just frightened people with simple clothes and small personal items. They did not know that those personal items had been designed by Earth's best scientists. They did not know that the humans themselves had been changed in ways that no scanner could detect. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Yun Kim sat in a room full of computers and screens.
Ow.
She watched as green lights began blinking on her control panel. Each light meant that one of her packages had made it onto an alien ship. "Package 7 is aboard," she reported into her headset. "All systems are active and waiting for the signal." "Copy that, Control," came the reply. "Phase 2 is running perfectly." On the alien ships, the humans were pushed into large metal rooms with no windows. The doors slammed shut with a sound like thunder. Some of the humans began to cry, but others comforted them. To the watching aliens, it looked like normal human behavior. They did not see the small hand signals being passed between the prisoners, or notice how certain people moved to specific positions around the room. Commander Vextila was pleased. Ships were now loaded with fresh slaves, and there had been no trouble at all. "Begin departure sequence," he ordered. "Set course for the mining colonies." The huge ships began to turn away from Earth, their engines powering up for the long journey through space. But as they prepared to make the jump to light speed, something went wrong. First, the navigation computers started showing impossible readings. The screens flickered and displayed maps of places that did not exist. Then the communication systems began broadcasting strange signals, human voices speaking in military codes. Finally, the life support systems started making loud warning sounds. "What is happening?" Vexilea shouted as his bridge crew ran from station to station trying to fix the problems. "Sir," his chief engineer called out, his voice shaking with fear, The human technology has infected our systems. There is some kind of virus spreading through our computers. It is changing our programs, taking control of our ship functions. Vexla could not believe what he was hearing. That is impossible. The humans are primitives. They have basic computers at best. Sir, this virus is unlike anything we have seen. It learns and adapts. It is rewriting our core systems faster than we can stop it. In the prisoner holding room of Transport 7, Captain Ji-hoon Kwan quietly reached into his pocket and pressed a small button on his device. Around the room, other humans did the same. Suddenly, Ji-hoon's calm expression changed. His eyes became hard and focused. He was no longer pretending to be a frightened civilian. Dragon teams, this is Shepard, he whispered into a tiny microphone hidden in his collar. The trap is sprung. Begin Phase 3. The aliens had thought they were collecting weak humans to work as slaves. Instead, they had invited Earth's most dangerous warriors directly onto their ships. The real battle was about to begin. The alien ships floated in space like dead whales, their lights flickering on and off as their computer. Systems crashed over and over again. Red emergency lights painted the metal hallways in blood-colored shadows, while alien crew members ran back and forth, trying to fix machines that would not obey their commands. Commander Vextala stood in his command center, watching his screens, filled with error messages in languages he had never seen before. His forehands shook as he gripped the control panel. In 300 years of taking slaves from other worlds, nothing like this had ever happened. Report, he demanded, his voice cracking with fear he had never felt before. The human virus is spreading through every system, sir, his chief engineer replied, sweat dripping from his gray skin. It learns faster than we can fight it. Every time we try to stop it, it changes and becomes stronger. How long until we can escape? I do not know, sir. The virus will not let us start our engines. We are trapped. On Transport 7, the humans. We're no longer pretending to be helpless prisoners. Captain Ji-hoon Kwan stood in the middle of the holding room, but he looked completely different now. His simple clothes had been replaced by black armor that seemed to drink in the light around it. When he moved, he looked like a living shadow, there one moment and gone the next. All teams report in, he said quietly into his communication device.
Oh.
Team. Alpha ready, came a voice. We have taken control of the engine room. Team Beta in position, said another. Security station is ours. Team Gamma standing by, reported a third voice. We have access to their computer core. The other humans in the room were also changing. They pulled strange devices from their pockets and clothes, devices that unfolded into weapons and tools. Some put on armor that appeared from nowhere. Others seemed to grow taller and stronger as hidden systems in their bodies activated, Sergeant. Bioram Choi crept through the dark corridors of the ship like a hunting cat. Her enhanced eyes could see perfectly in the darkness, and her improved hearing could detect the slightest sound. She moved so quietly that even the ship's sensors could not find her. 6 enemies ahead, she whispered into her radio. They are guarding the bridge, removing them now. The alien guards never knew what hit them. One moment they were standing at their posts, the next they were falling to the floor, unconscious. Biora moved between them like a ghost, her modified body allowing her to move faster than their eyes could follow. Far below on Earth, General Tejan Nam sat in a hidden control room deep underground watching the battle through cameras that the humans had secretly placed on the alien ships. Green lights on his control panel showed him that every human team was in position and ready. Ghost Squadron, this is Command, he said into his microphone. You are cleared for Phase 4. Show them what we really are. In the empty space around the alien fleet, something impossible happened. Ships began to appear out of nowhere, as if they had been invisible and suddenly decided to show themselves. These were not the simple rockets that the aliens had seen. Before, these were sleek, deadly vessels that seemed to be made of shadow and starlight. The alien sensors went crazy as they tried to understand what they were seeing. The human ships were using technology that should not exist, materials that absorbed all forms of detection. Engines that left no trace, weapons that could fire faster than light itself. This cannot be real, Commander Vextella whispered as he watched his screens. The humans are primitives. They have basic computers and simple weapons. How can they build ships that our best scientists cannot understand? Major SEO Young Han stood on the bridge of her stealth ship, watching the alien fleet through her viewing screen. Her ship was called the Shadow's Edge, and it was invisible to every form of detection the aliens possessed. Around her, dozens of similar ships moved into attack position. All ships, this is Shadow Leader, she said calmly. The prey is trapped. Begin the harvest. The human ships opened fire with weapons that cut through alien armor like paper. They were not trying to destroy the enemy ships. They were being very careful to disable them instead. Holes appeared in the alien hulls, perfectly sized for human soldiers to enter. Teams of humans in powered armor began boarding the alien vessels. The armor made them look like mechanical demons with glowing red eyes and claws that could tear through metal. They moved through the alien ships like a plague, capturing crew members and stealing information from their computers. Commander Vextella watched in horror as his mighty fleet was taken apart piece by piece. These were not the weak primitives he had expected to find. These were predators who had been pretending to be prey, hunters who had waited patiently for the perfect moment to strike. Sir, his communications officer called out, we are receiving a message from the humans. What does it say? It is very simple, sir. It says, welcome to Earth. You came here looking for slaves. Instead, you found monsters. The harvest fleet that had come to collect human slaves was now being harvested itself. The hunters had become the hunted. There was nowhere left to run. The broken alien ships limped away from Earth like wounded animals, their crews shaking with fear they had never known before. Commander Vextella sat in his command chair, staring at the damage reports on his screens. Of his mighty fleet of 200 ships, only 37 remained. The rest had been destroyed or captured by the humans he had thought were helpless primitives. Set course for Mars, he ordered his navigator. We need to regroup and call for help. His crew worked frantically at their controls, trying to repair the damage done by the human virus. The ship's systems still flickered and failed randomly, making every task difficult. But slowly, the surviving ships began to move away from Earth, toward the red planet in the distance. It's sir, his sensor officer called out. We should reach Mars orbit in 6 hours. From there, we can send a message to the collective and request reinforcements. Vextella nodded grimly. He would have to explain how an entire harvest fleet had been destroyed by a species that barely knew how to fly between planets. The shame burned in his chest, but he had no choice. The humans were not what they seemed, and the galaxy needed to know. As the alien ships approached Mars, the sensor officer suddenly straightened in his chair. Sir, I am detecting multiple contacts ahead. Large ships moving to intercept us? Impossible, Vextella breathed, looking at his screens. How did they get there so fast? How did they know where we were going? The human fleet hung in space near Mars like a pack of wolves waiting for their prey. These ships were even larger than the ones that had appeared at Earth, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that the aliens had never seen before. At the center of the formation was a massive battleship that dwarfed even the largest Zephyrian vessel. Admiral Jason Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Mountain, watching the approaching alien ships with the calm patience of a born hunter. He had been waiting here for 3 days, knowing exactly when and where the enemy would arrive. Human mathematicians had calculated every possible escape route, and this was the most likely path. All ships, this is Mountain Base, he said into his communication system. The wounded animals are trying to run. Time to finish the hunt. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, like fingers on a giant hand. Each captain knew exactly where the others would be, creating a trap that the aliens could not escape. Their movements were so precise that they seemed to be controlled by a single mind. Dr. Hyojin Beek watched the battle from the Iron Mountain's tactical center. 15 years of research finally paying off. She had spent her entire career studying the wreckage of the first alien scout ship that had crashed in Alaska decades ago. Every piece of their technology, every weapon, every defensive system had been taken apart and analyzed. Fire when ready, Admiral Park ordered. The human weapons were not like anything the aliens had seen before. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, they fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. But these were not ordinary bullets, they were made of exotic matter that existed partially outside normal space, allowing them to pass through alien shields as if they were not there. The results were terrible to watch. Zephyrian ships that had seemed invincible were torn apart like paper. Their energy shields, designed to stop the most powerful energy weapons, were useless against the human kinetic impactors. Ship after ship exploded or broke apart, their crews screaming in languages no human could understand. "Sir, we cannot fight them," Vextila's tactical officer reported. "Our weapons cannot penetrate their armor, and our shields cannot stop their attacks." "Then we surrender," Vextila said quietly. "Signal all ships to stand down." But the humans were not interested in surrender. They wanted prisoners and information. Boarding pods launched from the human ships, cutting through alien hulls with molecular saws. Teams of soldiers in powered armor stormed aboard the crippled vessels. Moving through the corridors like unstoppable machines, Colonel Young-Soo Kim led the assault on Vextila's command ship. His armor was black as space itself, covered in sensors and weapons that made him look like a mechanical demon. Behind him came 20 more soldiers, each one enhanced with technology that made them stronger and faster than any normal human. The alien crew tried to fight back, but their weapons bounced harmlessly off the human armor. The humans moved through the ship like a plague, capturing everyone they found and downloading information from every computer they could access. "Bridge secured," Colonel Kim reported as his team burst onto the command deck, beginning prisoner processing. Vextila found himself staring into the eyes of a human warrior, and what he saw there made his blood freeze. These were not the eyes of a civilized being. These were the eyes of a predator that had learned to use technology, a monster that had put on the mask of civilization but remained savage underneath. "You came to our world looking for slaves," Colonel Kim said quietly. "You found something much worse." A few alien ships were allowed to escape, but not before the humans burned a message into their hulls with quantum etching tools. The message was simple but would be understood by every species in the galaxy. Humanity does not kneel. The hunt was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. The broken alien ships that escaped from Earth carried more than just wounded survivors. They carried a message that would spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species with communication technology soon heard about the Terra incident, how an entire harvest fleet had been destroyed by humans who were supposed to be primitive and helpless, on the planet Kepler-4 to be. A race of blue-skinned beings, called the Valar, had been slaves to the collective for over 300 years. They worked in the deep mines, digging up rare metals that powered alien technology. When the news reached their world, the slaves stopped working and looked up at their overseers with new hope in their eyes. "Is it true?" whispered Kava, an elderly Valari who had been born in chains. "Did the humans really destroy a harvest fleet?" The answer came from hidden radios that the slaves had built in secret. The details were incredible. Humans had pretended to surrender, then turned their own capture into a trap. They had used technology that the collective did not understand. Weapons that could pass through shields. Soldiers who moved like ghosts through alien ships. On the water world of Aquatica, fish-like beings called the Nereids had been forced to farm the oceans for food that fed alien armies. When they heard about Terra, they began to organize resistance groups. If humans could fight back, maybe they could too. The news spread to 100 worlds, 1,000 species. Everywhere the collective had planted their flag and taken slaves. The story of the Terra monsters gave hope to the hopeless and fear to the oppressors. 3 months after the battle, Ambassador Sungmin Lee stood before the Galactic Council, a gathering of representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The Great Hall was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, some with scales, some with fur, some that looked like living crystals. Many of them had lost their homeworlds to the collective's harvest fleets. "People of the galaxy," Sungmin said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber, "I come before you as the first official representative of Earth. We offer friendship to all who seek peace and protection to those who cannot protect themselves." He paused, looking around the hall at the faces watching him. Some showed hope, others showed fear. All of them were listening carefully. "But let me be clear," he continued. "We will not tolerate slavers. We will not ignore those who prey on the innocent. The galaxy has seen what happens when Earth is threatened. Do not mistake our offer of friendship for weakness." The message was understood by everyone in the hall. Humanity was not asking to join the galactic community as a junior partner. They were announcing themselves as a new power that would not be ignored. On distant worlds, the effects of the Terra incident began to show. Collective harvest operations that had been running smoothly for decades suddenly faced resistance. Slaves, who had been obedient for generations, began to rebel. Weapons that had been hidden for centuries were pulled from secret caches. The Zephyrian Collective, which had ruled through fear and superior technology for millennia, found their empire beginning to crack. Their reputation for invincibility was gone. If humans could defeat them, what did that say about their power? Dr. Mi Kyung-on sat in her office high above the Pacific Ocean, reading intelligence reports from across the galaxy. As Earth's first director of galactic relations, she was responsible for managing humanity's new role in the greater universe. The reports showed that the galaxy was changing, and Earth was at the center of that change. "Director," her assistant, said, entering the office with a worried expression, "we are receiving reports that other species are calling us monsters. Some are even afraid to make contact with us." Dr. An smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "Good," she said. "Sometimes the galaxy needs monsters to keep the real monsters in check." The truth was that humanity had never intended to become a galactic power. They had only wanted to be left alone, to develop their civilization in peace. But when threatened, they had shown what they were truly capable of. Now the galaxy knew that Earth was not a world to be trifled with. Across the stars, human ships began to patrol the void, their crews watching for any sign of slavers or pirates. These were not the simple rockets that the aliens had expected. These were vessels that incorporated the best of human and alien technology. Crewed by soldiers who had been trained to fight in the darkness between stars, the galaxy had been ruled by predators for thousands of years, species that took what they wanted from weaker civilizations. Now, there was a new predator in the void, one that hunted the hunters, on worlds where beings had been enslaved for generations. Parents told their children bedtime stories about the Terra monsters, humans, who came from a small blue world, and taught the galaxy that even the strongest bully could be defeated by those who refused to kneel. The humans had only wanted to be left alone. Instead, they had accidentally started a revolution that would change the galaxy forever. The age of easy conquest was over. The monsters from Terra were watching, and they did not forget those who preyed upon the innocent.